Hey there, it's Mary Claire. Welcome to my channel. I enjoyed yesterday's video, so I'm going to do another one. We're going to talk about the man who was in the news, the evangelical pastor who from Baton Rouge who beat the shit out of a much younger man who I think is probably mentally ill, but there's no diagnosis so far that is available, and it really doesn't matter, as in this man's privacy matters. And he the 20-year-old man is the victim in this situation, and I don't care kind of what has gone on before. The pastor was very clearly wrong. You can see the video on social media. I'm not fancy enough to know how to put that shit into my videos yet. But the video shows the pastor coming across the street and attacking this man, and not only attacking him, but once he gets him on the ground, he keeps punching and punching and punching. The guy had to go to the hospital. I think he may have a broken bone in his face or, somewhere else. But I had heard that there could be a fracture because I've been following this case on social media and whatever. So there's clearly this man has caused some damage. And in my opinion, the amount of rage that came from the pastor and the amount of damage he did to this man, it should be an attempted murder case, because the pastor was not going to stop. He just kept pounding on him in the video. So at some point you're trying to kill the man, and even if he wasn't intentionally trying to kill him, the level of rage he had would put it into attempted murder for me. I mean, that's clearly where this was going. And that's just, so Jesus, I don't expect the young man that was beaten, the victim, to act in a way that Jesus calls us to act if he's not a Christian. And from what I can see, he probably isn't, although I am not going to say for sure one way or the other, because I haven't seen anything confirming or denying what his religious persuasion is. Or if there's any. So I'm not going to call it for sure, but from what I've seen, he's probably not a Christian. He's probably mentally ill in some way. Again, there's no diagnosis that I know of, and so I don't believe in armchair diagnosing, so there's probably something wrong there, but who knows? But that really doesn't make any difference here. So when I refer to the victim, I'm not referring to Tony Spell. I am referring to the young man he beat up. Just to make that clear, because a lot of people are making Tony Spell out to be the victim, which is completely and utterly ridiculous and just wrong. This man could have killed that victim very easily if it had gone on any further. And as being a pastor, he should be especially careful. So I don't expect the victim to really behave in a Christian manner, because I can kind of assume from what I've seen that he's not Christian. Now, Tony Spell, as a Christian evangelical pastor, I expect him to follow Jesus. So when in the Gospels Jesus, comes to us as a non-violent Savior, violence begets violence. Violence does not solve anything. God does not call us to violence. Jesus taught against violence. So I don't really care what this young man had done, what had gone on before, what he said in regards to the pastor beating the shit out of him and trying to kill him, in my opinion. So the story goes, and so far it's the church and the pastor saying this, so take it as if it's from a used car guy. They've said that for the last 6 years or so, this man has been hurling insults across the street to the church, and he's been making crude gestures and racist remarks and all kinds of things. So he's been doing it across from the street, and this has been going on about 6 years, according to the church. So anything, evidently, because there's been no real physical altercations before that I've been able to see, it means that this man is all bark and no bite. He says a lot of shit, but he doesn't actually do anything. So the threats that he made after 6 years of not doing anything except hollering are, in my mind, not credible. And probably in any person who would have come into this situation unbiased, they're not credible threats. So the pastor says that this man had said he was going to rape his wife and children, and I can see how upsetting that would be. I mean, it really would if that is what he had said. But the fact still is this guy was across the street. The pastor came from his church, ran across the road, muttering something about he was going to break the man's neck, which is also, for me, puts that into attempted murder category rather than battery, because he made the threat, and if you break somebody's neck, you're trying to kill them. So he threatened murder in my eyes. So when he got across the street, he's now in the victim's territory. So this is a case of self-defense, but it's self-defense on the victim. People are saying, well, the victim threw the first punch. Now, again, I don't believe in using violence, but this young man, as far as I know, isn't Christian. So I don't expect him to behave that way. So he punched the pastor, and so the church and the pastor are trying to say, well, this young man started it. It's not self-defense. It's self-defense because the pastor came into his yard threatening to break his neck and then beating on him. So that is a threat, and the young man trying to come at him is self-defense. There's no self-defense for a pastor who deliberately left where he was, went across the street. That's where this isn't self-defense whatsoever. This is inexcusable. There was no need for the pastor to leave the street. And the thing is, I understand the amount of rage that this pastor had felt and the adrenaline that was running through his body as a result. And that's really one of the dangers of rage. This is where rage leads. And so, as a Christian, and I would argue that as a pastor, he should be, working hard to act Christ-like. As a Christian, we are called to love our enemies. So if this man has been doing what the church said he's been doing and hurling insults over the street for 6 years, the pastor, as a follower of Christ, is still supposed to love that man. And you don't beat the shit out of and try to kill a person that you love. Now, the pastor is trying to be a funny guy because he's smarmy and arrogant like most evangelical pastors. And he got into the pulpit apparently that night after getting out of jail because, of course, you go straight to church, right? So he preached a sermon, and he said that in the Gospel of Mark, I believe it is, if it's not in Mark, that is what some people have been writing that this is in. Apparently, Jesus says that the disciples would lay hands on the sick to heal them. And this man is saying, well, see, Jesus said to lay hands on the sick. He didn't say how to lay hands on him or how long. So he's saying, I laid hands on him as in beat him. Therefore, this is okay. And everybody knows that's not what that Bible passage means. And I believe that he is not in a denomination that even believes in apostolic succession. So he's not in that line of clergy that have come down from the apostles. So this really doesn't apply to him to begin with. And not only that, but he is just bragging about it using Bible verses out of context. I think that he suspected this guy is mentally ill, which makes it even worse because it doesn't really matter if the man is mentally ill. If the pastor thought he was mentally ill and then attacked him like that, that makes it worse. The pastor could still act Christ-like at this point and redeem himself somewhat, because he could stand up in the pulpit and say, hey, this was wrong. What I did was wrong. I'm confessing it publicly because the sin was very public. And so I just want to say this was wrong. I'm going to submit to the process of law and not keep trying to get out of this. That would be. We don't think, or I don't think that people are perfect. I don't think we should be judged on our worst moments. I also think that when we fuck it up as followers of Christ, we need to repent. And so this man still has a chance to follow the teachings of Jesus, even though he didn't until this point. This isn't an irredeemable thing, because nothing that people do is irredeemable. He could choose right at this moment to repent and change his behavior and act in a more Christ-like manner by sorting this out and submitting to the justice process. Now, it's interesting because there are some indicators that he might have. There's some things saying that his wife has called in several times to the police claiming that he's beating her, and the wife beating thing really wouldn't surprise me either. He's an evangelical pastor. I mean, what would I expect? But there's also something that says that he tried to run somebody else over with a van. So if these allegations are true, this man does have a history of violence. And just last week, the police in a small town in Mississippi said that somebody that Walmart said was shoplifting who wasn't, they said she tried to escape in a car and she ran the car at them like a weapon. I don't think that's what happened. I think the police are lying. They haven't released the video footage. But one of the police officers shot and killed a 1-year-old little boy in that car because he said that this car was being used as a weapon against him. My opinion in that is this, there seems to be this Republican thing right now. The MAGA Republicans seem to be just all excited about the idea of killing somebody. This is why they shoot. They can't wait to shoot and kill. They love their guns. They love violence. This is where we're at as a country, and it's terrible. So if that is so, then doesn't that also mean that the white man running a vehicle at somebody is also an attempted murder? But of course not, because he's white. This is a racial issue. So you've got, different standards going on here depending on skin color, which is normal because this is the South and it's wrong. I say that racism is the original sin in this country. I understand entirely the rage that the pastor probably felt. The police have said now, the church says that over all these years they put in hundreds of calls to the police and the police haven't done anything. The police have pulled up records for the last 6 years and said that the church has called just a couple of times and it wasn't that serious. So again, my willingness to believe an evangelical pastor is I really don't, unless there's other people that also say it, and not his church members, like outside people. But then again, I don't necessarily trust the police either because of the things that happen in which the police are involved. But in this particular case, I'm going to believe the police over a pastor. Sorry, I just am. So if the police say that they only have records of a couple of calls, they only have records of a couple of calls unless it can be proven otherwise. I understand the rage. I used to be in a gang and in gang life, and I think the same thing was happening here. In gang life, it's about respect. If you don't respect me, then I'm going to beat the shit out of you. That's just the way it works in gang life. And the reason you beat or harm with violence the other party is because they disrespected you. So in this case, it's similar because I'm sure Tony Spell felt disrespected, and so he comes to try and, excuse me here. I think there was a cold trying to come in, and I don't know why it, even puts the call through when I'm trying to record a video, but whatever. I don't know how to do this well enough to take it out either. I'm sorry. So, if this takes off a little bit, then yeah, I'll put in extra effort to learn how to do this, but it's very frustrating to me. It's so finicky that I'm not sure if I can, do it real well, but I'm going to learn. But today I'm just going to post the video, okay? So, I understand rage. I understand the feeling of being disrespected, but this, again, this is the danger in rage. Rage takes you further than you want to go. So while I say that in my mind it was attempted murder because of the severity of it, I don't believe that Tony Spell sat there and said, I'm going to kill this guy. When the rage and the adrenaline hit, then probably the way rage works and the adrenaline kicking in, that's when he would have killed the guy. And it becomes attempted murder when you keep hitting him even though he's on the ground. So that's why I say that, and I say it from the point of view as someone, again, that was in gang life and understands that kind of rage and the feeling of disrespect and of being wronged. My priest says that, as Christians, Jesus says to love our enemies, do good to those who don't treat us well. So my priest, however, takes that a little further, and he says we don't have enemies. And at first, when I first heard him say that, I was like, Father Stephen, come on now, this doesn't sound right. And he said to me, every time I preach that, there is somebody that says something about it. So I was expecting it from somebody. So, evidently he's well used to this. But I think, looking back on it, I appreciate Father Stephen's point, as in he wasn't saying there aren't people. He's not saying there aren't people that want to harm us. He's not saying that there are people we do or don't like. What his point is that if we are living the way Jesus asks us to live, we won't see these people as enemies because we'll be too busy trying to love them. And if we perceive them as an enemy, that's still legit, but the command is the same, to love them. So whether we have enemies or we don't, we're supposed to love one another. I'm Episcopalian, and so in the baptismal covenant, we promise to respect the dignity of every human being, whether, we like them or not, isn't relevant. And I don't think it is relevant for followers of Jesus. And I am not by any means perfect on this nonviolence thing. I believe that I was more inclined toward the whole nonviolent spirituality because of where I've been. I think I would have got there anyway because that's what I believe that Jesus taught. But the fact that I've had so much violence in my past makes me see how violence begets violence, and it doesn't solve anything. So there's a lot at play here, but the pastor is just wrong. And when I will say something like, well, Jesus doesn't want us to commit violence, I have people come at me and say, well, self-defense, or well, he had to neutralize a threat. Jesus didn't neutralize threats. Jesus didn't beat up people that mistreated him. In fact, Jesus went to the cross because he didn't defend himself when a violent mob decided they wanted him dead. He just let them kill him. I'm not saying we should lay back and do nothing, but I still am not inclined to believe we're supposed to have violent ways of self-defense either. I believe that we're called to nonviolence to the point where we don't act violently towards others, which means we'll come up with more creative ways. That includes war. We don't war is evil. There is no just war theory. Sorry, Augustine. He's wrong on this one. It's okay for him to be wrong, even though he's a saint. They were wrong on some things too. So I'm glad actually that Pope Leo is taking the stance of war is wrong, especially in this day and age. We're too violent. The culture in the U.S. here is really violent. It's really sad. So all this so-called Christianity that the politicians are trying to bring in that they know isn't Christianity, and we can tell because it's violent. So, something by its fruits, and the fruits of violence, so it's not of God. One of these people came at me and said that I was against the use of violence because I'm just too scared. Bitch, I was in a gang. I know how to fight. I'm disabled now and I use a walker to get around, and I could still fight and probably knock someone out pretty good. But I don't do that because it's not what I'm called to do. And I renounced gang life, and I have not been in a gang for 20 years. So this isn't something I want to do. And what's interesting right now is some of the people in my neighborhood, 2 times in the last couple weeks, drew gang signs directly in front of my driveway. They didn't do it to anybody else's driveways. Now, I know what they're mad about. They're mad that I called the police over children stealing mail out of my letterbox. That's illegal. I just want it to stop. I need my mail. So I called that in, and then they started with this gang sign thing. And it's a parent that is encouraging her children and other children to draw these signs. And we have it on video, so, the police have the video. It's not like this can't be proven. It's an adult getting children to do the dirty work for her. But if she's affiliated with this gang, I don't see any signs of that as far as the way she dresses or what she does or any of that. I don't see any signs of it. But if she's affiliated, she's not very well liked. So they're drawing this gang's gang signs, and they're probably not members, but to teach your kids gang signs, that's like contributing to the delinquency of a minor. She should be arrested. And some of this then said this particular city, I'm going to say Candyland, right? Candyland owns this bitch. So me and my teenagers were joking the other day, and we said we should have named one of the cats Candyland because cats own us, so Candyland owns this bitch. So that was just a joke about it. It's a direct threat, but I don't feel like I'm in any danger because, again, like it was with this man, it's all talk and no action. And it's not even their gang. They just know people in this gang, and I know they know people in this gang because they know the signs very well. Well, these dumb motherfuckers, they drew one of the gang signs and then signed their names in it. So I found that kind of amusing. You can tell it's kids, but it was an adult watching the kids, and the adult did draw the one in front of my driveway. So, I don't go across the street to this woman and try to fight her. I know that this is technically a threat, but it's a threat without teeth. But even if it was a threat with some level of actual danger, it still wouldn't be right for me to march across the street, bang on her door, pull her out of her house, and start beating the shit out of her. Now, I wouldn't be able to do that because this woman's kids are always getting into trouble in the neighborhood, and the parents of the kids they hurt keep going over there, and she refuses to answer the door because, she doesn't care what her kids are doing. And that's a her thing. But I don't go and fight her knowing that she did this. And she knows we know because we have her on video. So anyway, it's relevant to what I'm discussing here, but it's just one of those things that happens. I'm not going to go fight her. I had a neighbor here once that actually told me to come be a woman and fight her. And I told her I just wasn't going to do that because I don't have to. One thing I learned after leaving gang life is you don't have to attend a fight just because somebody gave you a ticket, right? Or an invitation. Doesn't mean you have to attend. You don't have to show up. So she wanted me to come fight her. I was out in my garden. She perceived that I did something because somebody down the road told her I did something when it was my neighbor that did something. And it wasn't something that even mattered. But she was just convinced I did it, and so she was going to come at me. And she was really, really aggravated that I refused to fight her. And so I was pulling out my car one day, and she came and she stepped in front of me so that I couldn't drive out. And so I moved a little bit to try to dodge her. And so then she went and still kept in front of me. And I tried a third time in the other direction. So rather than, I wanted to roll my window down and curse her out, but I didn't. What I did was just backed up in my driveway. I live on a circle, so I backed up in my driveway and then drove out the other way. She was pissed off, but she couldn't do anything about it. And that, stopped a potential altercation. It's just that kind of neighborhood here. It's not anything unusual. It's not to do with me. It's to do with whoever is not doing well at the time. So it's just people that are living lives where they don't feel like they're in control, and so they're trying to control their surroundings. This stuff happens. I don't understand the desire to just keep beating and beating and beating, or shooting and shooting and shooting until you kill somebody. Killing somebody is serious, serious shit. When you take a human life, that's just something that is so completely different. I don't understand how people like Kyle Rittenhouse sleep at night. I really, really don't. Because when I was 19, I was in a trafficking situation. An accident happened. I accidentally killed a friend of mine. And it was an accident. I wasn't charged because it was quite clearly an accident. It wasn't negligence. It wasn't manslaughter. It didn't fit under any of that. So I wasn't charged, but, there was an investigation and whatever. And, the police didn't really care because it was a dead prostitute. Who cares about dead prostitutes? Nobody was there for her anyway, which is wrong. It's really sad, and that really bothers me to this day, too. But even having done that accidentally just changed my entire life. It's not something that should be taken lightly. So when you're beating somebody to the point where you could kill them, I don't understand that. He would never ever be the same person had he managed to kill a guy. It changes things so much. So that's what I've got to say about that guy, and some of the things that I see in relation to this that some people might or might not. And I just want you to notice Our Lady of Guadalupe and Our Lady of Fatima behind me, and Rosary and John the Baptist and whatever. But I want you to see Our Lady of Guadalupe and Our Lady of Fatima there. So this was fun again, and I will talk to you guys later. Have a great day.